Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! This happened yesterday, and I'm still super mad. So if there are spelling errors or grammar mistakes, it's because I'm typing with a lot of fury right now. My mother's younger brother's wife, entitled the aunt, has always been an annoying and entitled woman, so I try to limit my time with her. She expects people to drop things at a time to come help her because she's the wife of the only son. My mom is the oldest, most successful, and takes care of my grandparents, but they still favor my uncle more just because he's a boy. My uncle is, for all intents and purposes, a loser. Gambles away his money and borrows money from my grandparents when they are just living on Social Security and will likely never pay back the tens of thousands of dollars he owes my parents. They have one son and he's the most spoiled brat I have ever met, despite the very little means to buy him anything. However, he has been taught his whole life that he does nothing wrong. If he gets in trouble at school, his parents tell him the other kid is wrong. Anyways, we decided to celebrate Chinese New Year early this year because it was a 3-day weekend the weekend before, and the NFC/AFC championships, so a lot of things to bring the family around. Anyways, I had just gotten a new home and decided to host the extravaganza. In my house there is a den that I have dedicated to be in my man cave/office. The room is on the bottom floor right next to the garage and the laundry room. Anyways, this has always been one of my dream setups. The right is my workstation, since I work from home at least once a week. The left is my personal game station. My gaming PC is mounted below the table, and then left of my computer is where my consoles are with a nice 40-inch 4K HDR TV. Anyways, I've worked hard creating this room and continue to work hard to get more stuff. So the entitled aunt and her hellspawn entitled cousin comes over. Since it was their first time over, I gave them a tour. Everything entitled aunt sees, she has a negative comment about, despite never having owned her own house because her husband is a deadbeat. When we reach my den, the entitled cousin lights up and goes nuts over my setup. I tell them how I work on one side and play on the other side. My aunt goes straight into ridiculing me, how this is all a waste of money and how I shouldn't be playing games. I remind her that I work in the gaming industry and that there is no age limit to video games. Entitled cousin starts whining about how he wants this too. Without a second thought, my aunt walks over to my gaming area and starts unplugging things and grabbing controls. I ask her what the hell she's doing and she says, "My son wants this, so I'm backing it up." I tell her that she cannot take what is not hers, and he cannot have it. The entitled cousin now starts screaming, "I want it, I want it, I want it now!" Now, I'm a big guy for an Asian person, 5'10", and over 200 pounds of mostly muscle. My aunt is maybe 5'2", so not only do I tower over her, I'm probably twice her body weight, and she knows I'm easily the strongest in the family. So there is no way she can wrestle anything away from me. I tell her to put everything back now, and she reluctantly complies and haphazard puts stuff down. Might as well have dropped everything. She threatens to tell my mom, and I tell her to go ahead since my mom hates her. She drags her entitled kid out screaming, and I clean up my office and make sure to close the door behind me. The night goes on and we're watching the games on TV while eating up a storm. I go to the bathroom and notice that both entitled aunt and the entitled cousin are missing. It was odd because I could have sworn I heard more of that brat crying earlier. That's when my spidey sense tingles, and I walk downstairs to see my entitled cousin carrying my PS4 and other stuff in his small arms. They are halfway in the garage when they turn around and see me. I scream out what the hell and they start running to their car. I chase after them and get to their car before they do. I tell the entitled aunt that she has some balls trying to steal from me. She smugly says that you can't steal from family and her son needs those games because he's such a good boy. I tell her she's not taking a thing and I will call the police on her. She thinks I'm bluffing, so I break out my phone and call my buddy, who is a cop, to see if he's free, and I explain the situation to him. At this point, my aunt is screaming up a storm, neighbors are looking through the windows, and I'm standing right between her and her car. My parents and my siblings all came out and blocked the car with me. Eventually, the police showed up, but not my friend. Someone else must have called. The entitled aunt goes into a weeping mode and tells the police how she's been robbed by these people. I try speaking, but she goes even louder. The cop's partner starts pushing me back and tells me to step away. I tell him that I'm not trying to steal anything. She's the one trying to steal from me. The police are super confused and even more police show up. The entitled aunt keeps preaching her nonsense, and the cops appear to be taking her side. I try to talk, but no one is willing to listen. My friend eventually shows up and tells the other officers what is going on. They still don't believe me, but instead ask me if I can prove all of the items are mine. I take out my phone and show them on my Nest cams everything. I have a cam in my office because it also leads to the backyard. So if anyone comes in, it records everything. I show them the conversation of when the entitled aunt first tries to take my stuff. Then I show them the entitled aunt and cousin taking everything later and running out of the house. The entitled aunt starts backpedaling and says that all of this stuff belonged to her son. I know that the entitled cousin doesn't know anything about console games, so I ask him what he plays on this PS4, and he immediately responds with Halo. The entitled aunt looks back at me smugly, but as many gamers know, the entitled cousin just done effed up. I tell everyone how Halo is only an Xbox, you can't play it on PS4, and anyone who owned the console would know that. Finally, the police see the lights and take back everything and hand my stuff back to me or my family. The police then ask if I want to press charges. I look the entitled aunt in the face and simply say, yes. They arrested her, but I convinced them to leave my entitled cousin with us instead. After about a week, I will drop the charges, but I want the entitled aunt to sweat it out because that was not only theft, but it was considered grand larceny, and that means some serious jail time. She's now forever banned from my home. Let's start with some context. I work at my local Walmart, and I have been working there for about 3 months at the time this happened. This happened about a year ago. It's still pretty fresh in my mind. I no longer work at that shop right now, but this incident has nothing to do with that. I consider myself to be a pretty naturally nice person, and so when checking people out, it was easy enough to keep conversation, make them laugh and entertain them while I put their groceries in the bag. I was halfway through bagging the items of a small family of 3 when the entitled mother and the poor kid showed up behind them. Immediately I can tell what kind of person the entitled mother is, because I have dealt with them before, just not like this. The entitled mother pushes her cart forward immediately, looking impatient because someone was in front of her. Mind you, the store was pretty inactive since it was only 9 or 10 a.m. on a Tuesday. There were 2 other registers open at this point, so she obviously chose mine just so she could choose to be impatient. I finished packing the family's bags, and the entitled mother pushed forward, hitting the nice family's father in the shin with the cart. Ow! As she walked up, the entitled mother muttered something like, "Took you long enough." That's when I knew I was in for a ride. The kid points at a chocolate candy. "Mom, can I get a candy bar?"
No, you cannot. Do you want to get fat? You're already gaining weight.
This poor kid was in no way obese, but his mother was most certainly 250 pounds or more. Not to mention the entitled mother's cart was full of junk food, and I was pretty sure it wasn't for the kid. I started checking her out, and 2 items too, and this which size.
How long is this going to take? My son has a play date soon, and I need to go. I don't like being late.
Sure thing, ma'am. I'll go as fast as I can. I wasn't in the mood to argue, so I sped it up. I am normally pretty quick, checking out even 70 items in maybe 5 minutes max. She was maybe 35, so I was going pretty quick. Then she sighs again.
What's taking you so long? You're being incredibly rude. You understand people have places to be, right? Get your manager out here now.
I was taken aback. Manager? I was checking her out for barely like 2 minutes. My manager? For what?
I have places to be, and you are delaying my schedule. I have OCD, you know. I can't handle being late.
That was nonsense. It would be more of a delay for her to get the manager, and the OCD part was so forced. I did not believe it, and as if to prove it, she snatched 2 boxes and straightened them. Right.
Give me your manager, I don't have all day.
Not wanting to have this go any further, I call my manager and he walks down. What's the issue here?
Your employee is intentionally moving slowly. He knows I have OCD and wants to make me have a panic attack. Is that what you want? In your store? Fire him and give me a discount. The way I'm being treated is absurd.
Ma'am, I can't fire him for simply moving slowly. If you want a discount, we have an online system that will give you a lot of coupons. She looked furious. How dare my manager suggest she use a coupon instead of lying about mental disease? She snatched 2 more boxes and straightened them to try to prove her point.
How dare you? You understand I have OCD? Now that I thought about having a discount, I need it 50% off.
Ma'am, I can't just give you a discount, but once again, if you would like to save money, please feel free to use our own line. She cuts him off and slapped him across the face very hard. Her face was red and her son looked horrified. Mom, what the hell?
What did I say about language, huh?
The entitled mother then slapped her son for swearing and took all the items on the conveyor and her bags and threw them in a cart. She grabbed her kid's hand and started bolting for the door without paying, swearing at me and my manager, promising to sue us for mental damages and cruelty. Right. Just as she was clearing the aisle, I yelled, "Stop! Somebody stop her! She didn't pay!" An older gentleman in maybe his 40s looks up, sees the woman, and runs to her. He grabs her cart and begins to yell at her to stop. He tells her, "What are you doing? Stop before someone here calls the police." The manager was already on his phone dialing 911 when this entitled mother literally slaps the Good Samaritan. He barely reacts and immediately punches this lady in the stomach. Now I know it's seen as wrong to punch a woman, but he had every right and reason to do so. The entitled mother doubles over, immediately dramatizing the punch.
I'm pregnant, you disgusting animal! You killed a child!
Her kid looks up like he has had enough. She's lying. She isn't pregnant. The entitled mother immediately gets up a bit, looking angrier than ever. Apparently, all the pain gone and starts for her kid when the Good Samaritan grabs her, and 2 others help detain her. They held her there until the police came. We showed them the surveillance footage while the entitled mother sat in cuffs. The entitled mother went out in a police cruiser. Her son went home with his father, and I never heard more about what happened. But I can assume she got a jail sentence for child abuse and attempted robbery. I just hope that the poor kid has a great father and can get on with his life. In college, my 2 friends and I decided to find a place together off campus. We found a beautiful 3-bedroom house with surprisingly affordable rent. The basement of the house was listed as a separate apartment, but as it had a separate entrance and the indoor stairwell had been blocked off, we weren't worried. And the thermostat was upstairs. Then the demon neighbor moved in. From upstairs we could hear everything. This adult woman would call her mother and scream at her to pay for her cell phone bills and give her groceries money, aka Taco Bell and cheap tequila. She would scream at whatever guy she was sleeping with to bring her meth. And one day, she brought home 3 puppies to scream at. We were terrified of this woman and the noise was hell. Also, we've been idiotic enough to sign a lease stating that we were responsible for all utilities, period. Meaning we were now financing her gas, water, and electric. But with only 2 months left on the lease, we thought we could just ride it out. But then she started smoking constantly. According to the landlord, she'd quit for good when she signed the lease. But for good only lasted 2 days. Since it was winter, the heat was running nearly 24/7. And the smoke was wafting up from the vents. Our apartment and all our belongings began to reek with smoke. We contacted the landlord because we'd signed for a bloody non-smoking apartment. He told us we lived in a state where you could technically call an apartment non-smoking even if it shared ventilation with a smoking apartment. Screw you leasing laws. At this point, my two roommates were heading out for a 2-week vacation. They were online students while I was residential, leaving me alone in the apartment with a demon smoker in the basement. I couldn't sleep or eat because my idiotic stomach decided to react to all the secondhand smoke by aching and cramping constantly. After 3 days, I was a little insane. I made a plan. I checked the forecast. Lows in the 20s all week. I borrowed a friend's ultra-insulated sleeping bag. I bought one of those ski masks with holes for your eyes and mouth. I got out my stocking cap, my silk long underwear, my woolen socks and my down parka. I bought tea, hot cocoa and ramen and prepared to live off a diet of hot liquids. And I turned off the heat. Day 1. She's screaming at her mother for forcing her to move into this frozen crap hole of an apartment. Day 2. She's screaming at her boyfriend, meth dealer, because he won't let her move in with him. Day 3. She's screaming at the landlord about how she's freezing. Day 4. The landlord is at my door. I greet him in full ski mask, parka, stocking cap array, looking like I'm heading out to rob Santa Claus at the North Pole. He asks me if I don't find it a little chilly in the house, and I replied I'd found all the cigarette smoke a little warm. Day 5. She's screaming about the witches upstairs to anyone who will listen, and I'm sitting upstairs clutching my car keys and my pepper spray with 911 typed into my phone. She finally decides she's leaving and moving in with Greg, even though he just got out for stepping Travis, and he lives in that creepy house in the woods with all those jerks biting dogs. Day 6. She's gone. I silently bless Greg. Moral of the story, there is a bloody reason the rent seems too good to be true. P.S. For those wondering, I did have a friend who worked plumbing stop by to give me some advice about how low I could go before I burst the water pipes to hell and back. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.